Just preach longer later. It's fine. I hope everybody's doing well today, and happy Easter to you for those that have just come in for Sunday school. I know we had some already here from the earlier service. Had a good earlier service, and praise the Lord for that. And looking forward to a good Sunday school and later service as well. I do not have any Easter-related Sunday school lessons. I'm going to stick with our series we've been doing, but I do have, of course, an Easter-related actual message that I trust you'll enjoy. Anyhow, we're dealing with politics in the Bible, and specifically we're looking at what the Bible has to say about economics. And today we've looked at private property. And today we're going to look at government and should they establish an effective money supply for the nation. So we've got a couple verses today, and this is a shorter lesson. And I think we should finish it, and I'll get into another one, which is dealing with free markets, which really is more of a kind of an application of everything we've been talking about for the last few weeks. So we'll get into this. I do have probably a couple verses we're going to look at. Let's all turn to 1 Timothy. 1 Timothy chapter 6. I don't think I'm going to have a lot of readers today because I think I only got a couple verses I want to look at and build principles off of that. But 1 Timothy in chapter 6, we want to look at verse 10, and we want to see what the Bible has to say about money. And the first thing I want us to consider is that the Bible never says that money itself is evil. All right, and I think most of you know this, but we want to make sure we're on the same page here. 1 Timothy 6, look at verse 10 if you would. The Bible says, "For the love of money is the root of all evil, which while some coveted after, they have erred from the faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows." So what we see here is that it is the love of money that is the root of all evil, but not money itself. Money is good in itself because, think about it, money allows you to buy things. Anybody like to eat food? Oh, good. Well, you need money to buy that, all right? And so money is, in of itself, is good because it allows you to buy things that you need. Anybody like to take medicine when they're sick? That helps you feel better. Yeah, you do. Why? Well, you know what? That costs money. How many want to go to a good doctor when they're, really not well? Yeah, you want a good doctor. How many like to be able to come to church today? Well, you need a vehicle to get there, and that costs money. And if you're home and you're watching online, guess what? You need the internet. And we also need a computer or a phone. And guess what? All of that costs money as well. And so we see that money is good because it allows us to buy the things we need, to sell the things that we produce. If we didn't have money, you know what we would have to do? We'd have to barter, all right? And exchanging things that we have for things that we don't have. And that would make modern business transactions effectively impossible. In other words, if all you could do was barter, well, let's say you had chickens. How many eggs buys a car? You know what I'm saying? Like, how do you quantify that? You can't. So bartering would be a real pain, and it would effectively eliminate a lot of modern business transactions. Now, since very few people have the ability to produce everything that they need for themselves, we need money to buy and sell, which allows us to enjoy the benefits of other things that people produce. And so this is a good process because it forces us to have interaction with one another. Think about this. As Christians, aren't we supposed to propagate the gospel? We're supposed to tell people about the Lord Jesus Christ. Well, you know who the people that are the easiest to witness to? The ones we're already interacting with. And business allows us to interact with people. You go to a store and you get to know people at that store and you get to invite them to church. You go to a restaurant, you get to know the wait staff or the chef or or the owner, and you invite them to church, and they build relationships. I'm telling you, when you begin to think about it, the business side of things builds personal interactions. We may not like it, but you guys know a lot of business is done by personal relationships. It's who you know and how well you know them and what those relationships are. And that's how a lot of big business gets done, is all about personal relationship. And so we see that this buying and selling and using money helps us to develop friendships and levels of trust with people. And also, think about this, it also builds honest and integrity can be demonstrated. In other words, if you handle yourself financially with people in an honest manner with the finances, don't they begin to view you as a person of integrity across the board? When you're straight up with the money, you know, wow, that guy, man, they pay their bills. They're honest about finances. They're going to make an assessment about you, not just about finances, but about across the board. So when you think of it the other way. If a preacher is dishonest with money and you know it, does that make you trust him when he preaches? No. No, you call into question everything about him, all right? Everything about him. Why? He's dishonest in the money. Now, if he's honest with money, then that helps you to trust him in other areas as well. And so money is a measure of value, all right? Money itself carries value until we use it to purchase something or something else of value, all right? Well, what's one of the things we want our kids to learn? We want them to learn the value of money, don't we? All right? Because they'll be like, oh, hey, Mom, can you go get me a new phone? Yeah, I want an iPhone 11 or 12, sorry. I can't even keep up. I want an iPhone 12. Okay, how much? I don't even want to ask this, but how much does an iPhone 12 cost? Can someone tell me? $1,200. Okay. At the risk of offending anybody, your 12-year-old doesn't need that, okay? I'm just throwing it out there. Just throwing it out there. Your 12-year-old doesn't need a $1,200 phone. I don't need a $1,200 phone. You might, that's fine. No, not offending anybody here, not trying to offend anybody, just being straight up with you, okay? But, you know, when your 12-year-old's like, hey, Mom, can you give me an iPhone 12? You know what they don't have the value of that at? They have no idea how much that actually costs. None at all whatsoever. I talk with Titus in terms of Lego sets. Titus, think of the Lego set that you would love to get. You know, that is realistic, but we just don't have the money. Okay, that costs this. That's a big, I'll take one that he has. You like that Lego set? Oh, yeah. Yeah, to buy that, you got to buy 15 of those Lego sets or something like that. Whoa. He gets Legos, all right? And so he understands, a little bit. And, of course, that's because we, don't just buy them whatever. But, the point is you got to teach your kids to learn the value of money. Sam is going through that right now. And it's a blessing. And we were very impressed with her. I mentioned this in the earlier service, but I was very impressed with her. For two reasons. One, she managed to get her bank account down to $2.28. 277. I wasn't checking up on her. I just happened to go on to my account, and it's linked in with hers because she's under 18. And I was like, 277? Wow, that's pretty impressive. You got that down there. But then she actually bought more. She went to work and got something else for $1.49. I was impressed. I was like, wow, she found something to buy for $1.49 at Market Basket. I was like, wow, all right. She didn't overspend. She got it. So praise the Lord for that. And so I was impressed on two levels. One, that she could get that low, and two, that she could still spend more. And so learning the value of money. And, so government is obviously, we were talking about, should governments establish and maintain an effective money supply for a nation? And so we're taking a moment to talk about what does the Bible say about money? And money is not evil, okay? It's the love of money that is the root of all evil. But money itself is good, not bad. And we see that it can governments should provide people with the money they need to buy and sell things, okay? And so the best solution to do this is that governments should have a currency, all right? A currency. But if that system is going to work, that system of currency needs to remain stable. That's very, very important. You have to have a stable economy, a stable currency, because if you don't, it makes business very impractical. Let me give you an illustration. Let's say you hire somebody, a painter, to paint a room, and let's just throw a number. Let's say it's $200. I'm going to come in and paint this room for $200. Well, 1 week later, and he says, all right, it'll be a week, and I'll come in, and I paint this room for $200, and everything works fine. Why? Because in the time that you got the quote to the time that the work was done, the money remained the same, didn't it? The dollar didn't change dramatically, and so there's no issue there. But in some countries, what happens is inflation changes the value of money and effectively changes the rules of the game in the middle of the game. So suppose I agree to pay him $200 for painting my room. That'd probably get me a closet, but $200 for painting my room, and a loaf of bread, a loaf of bread costs $4, and a gallon of gas, costs $2 or whatever. Okay, and so he knows what his expenses are. His monthly rent's $1,000, and knowing all this, he agreed to paint the room for $200. But let's say after he made the agreement, inflation set in, and that loaf of bread went from $4 to $40, and went from $40 to $400. And the cost of gas per gallon went up to $200. And his rent was $10,000. You say, that's impossible. No, this happens. Fortunately not here, but it happens. It's called hyperinflation. It's happened many times in the world. In Hungary, in 1946, inflation was 207% daily. Prices doubled every 15 minutes. In Zimbabwe in 2008, the daily inflation rate was 98%, meaning prices doubled every 24 hours. Which is very recent. Yugoslavia in January of 1944, 64% daily inflation rate. That means prices doubled every day and a half. Germany in October 1923, prices doubled every almost just under 4 days. And Greece in October of 1944, prices doubled just over every 4 days. In China of May 1949, every week prices doubled. When inflation like this occurs, I might still pay the painter $200 that he agreed upon, but instead of that buying him, say, 50 loaves of bread, it'll buy him 1 loaf of bread. When the government allows the rules to change in the middle of the game, you know what happens? Everybody is robbed of the value of the money that they have worked for. And you know what will happen? No one will want to make contracts anymore, because they don't know what's going to happen, and they don't want to lock themselves into something that they won't be able to fulfill. And do you know what happens when no one wants to make contracts anymore? Your entire economic system begins to break down, and people are reduced to bartering, which is not a very, as we talked about, how many eggs buy a car? You can't really quantify that. Inflation absolutely destroys an economy and a nation. Right? Absolutely. We need to be kind of concerned about this. Now, we're not dealing with hyperinflation, but has anybody noticed that we are certainly dealing with inflation? And mark it down, all that stimulus money that we're excited about, it's not helping. It's not helping inflation. I can assure you of that. Anybody looked at the housing market right now? It's getting to the point of absurdity. All right? I bought my house 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I bought my house, and I will admit I got a little bit of a decent deal because it was a private sale, all right? It was a private sale, and it needed some work, okay? But that house is probably right now in this market worth what I bought it on and what I could sell it for is probably, I don't want to say doubled, but close. So that's insane. That my house is worth $200,000 more than what I bought it for in 4 years. 5 years. The apartment, when I moved here 12 years ago, the apartment that I rented 12 years ago costs double today what it did 12 years ago. It might be more now. It might double. Now, can I tell you, I have not increased my income double. Anybody else in the last 12 years doubled their income? And high school kids, you don't count. All right? Well, 12 years ago, I made nothing. Now I have a job. But I'm saying those of you that had careers 12 years ago, you've had pay increases, but anybody double their salary? Probably not too many of us, maybe one or two. But not a lot of people have doubled their salary. I know I haven't. So what's gone on? Jen has. You've done a lot more. You were a stay-at-home mom. And, things can get, look, there are some things going on right now that are pretty disturbing. Take this, the cost of building supplies right now has dramatically increased from 1 year ago. In fact, the cost of lumber from a year ago, right now, is 180% more than it was a year ago. 180% more. That means to build a new home, the cost of a new home on lumber alone has gone up 24% in 1 year just because of one item. Never mind all the other items that have gotten more expensive. All right, so now new homes aren't going up. Why? It's ridiculous. Unless you have an inordinate amount of money and you don't care. And that's driving everything else. And so we see this as a concern. If inflation occurs at 10 to 15% a year, people might not notice so quite abruptly, but the destructive effects will be felt because they're being robbed of 15% of your wealth every year. How long till that catches up to you? I mean, when you think about this, when inflation is going at 10, 15% a year and you're only getting a 3 or 4% raise, how long? How long till it catches up? All right? I mean, we talk about, raising, when government dictates a raise in minimum wage. Okay, now what does that do? It's just all that. Understand, when they do that, companies are not going to lose money. They're not going to pay for it. All that's going to do is drive up the cost of goods, and most of the people aren't getting any pay raises. So they're making the exact same amount, and now you watch over the next year, there's going to be the trickle-down effect that everything at the grocery store is just going to go up. And all your services that you buy are just going to go up, and what's happening? Your money's being devalued. Why? Because your government is making decisions that are destabilizing your economy. By pumping in a bunch of stimulus money, and I understand the reason behind it, COVID, I do. I'm not here to say it's right or wrong. What I am saying is understand what's going on. And so for these reasons, it is necessary for good governments to maintain a relatively stable economy over time. This should be understood as an issue of fairness. Will people make future commitments be treated fairly in the value that they have agreed upon to buy or sell? Who wants to make a commitment for something 6 months from now? Anybody notice you can't find a contractor to do anything right now? Why? They don't want to commit a cost 6 months from now. Why? They don't know what's going to cost. So they're doing the jobs they want to do, and you know what they're going to do? The big jobs. And they're not going to sign on for you for anything if it's a smaller job, and they're not going to commit themselves that far out because they don't know what the cost of materials are going to be. So you're not going to be able to find contractors to do work unless you have bigger projects or you know somebody personally. It's not going to happen. And that's exactly what a lot of people are facing right now. And so I talked with one guy who wanted to get an in-law apartment built for his mom. His mom is a widow, recently lost her husband, and wants to get an in-law apartment built onto his house. His house is probably worth, around $500,000-$600,000 right now. The in-law apartment, not big, very simple in-law apartment, was quoted by two different people at $270,000+. $270,000+. 40 of that was going to be what the contractor made on the job. So that means over $230,000 were going to be materials for an in-law apartment. The person was like, I don't know what to do. Because there's 0% chance I'm getting even half of that back in resale value. I don't know what to do. And it's like, either sign now or the contract's no good. Like either we do it now, or because why? Don't know what's going to cost. That's part of my problem with the church right now. And when we do pay off the building and getting plans drawn up, you get a quote on those plans. Understand, that's if you do it now. You don't know what it'll be a year from now. It might be more, it might be less. I hope it's less, but you don't know, all right? And so these things you just don't know, and this is part of one of the government's job is you can see why it's so important to keep a stable economy, because when there's uncertainty, people don't do things. And so people need to depend on the fact that the dollar in an agreement will truly reflect the dollar when they have a time to do it in the future. The value of business by which business transactions are evaluated, it's something like weights and measures of a merchant. Let's turn over to Proverbs 20, verse 10. Because you think of this, if the value of currency is constantly fluctuating, there's no dependable standard by which people can evaluate what they're buying and selling. Look at Proverbs 20, verse 10. This is an application here. It says this, Proverbs 20, verse 10. Divers weights, so different, divers is different. Divers weights and divers measures, both of them are alike, are an abomination unto the Lord. Now, this is a measuring system of value, okay? And what he's saying is this, is that when you start messing with the measurements of things, in other words, let's say you were a merchant and, someone's bringing you something that has value per weight, all right? Like, you go to the store and you buy a pound of chicken and that's, $4, say, or whatever. Well, let's say you know how they put if you go to the deli, you get whatever and they put it on the scale and you see what it says right there. Let's say that the merchants messed with the scale. Anybody happy about that? So it reads heavier than it is? No one's happy with that. When you start measuring with measurements, God calls it an abomination. That's strong language, isn't it? When you start cheating people of their money through weights and measurements and scales, it is an abomination unto God. So when you start making decisions that affect the value of your money in your account and start devaluing it, it's an abomination unto God. This is why these things matter that are going on in the world. We need to be knowledgeable about these things. Good government, should establish and maintain an effective money supply, and that means one in which the value of currency is relatively stable over time. Now, what causes excessive inflation? All right. What causes excessive inflation? Well, the answer is this: excessive increase in the money supply of a nation. Excessive increase in the money supply of a nation. So that means the total dollar amounts available in the economy. When you increase that number, it drives inflation. So let's use the game of Monopoly. Anybody ever play Monopoly before? All right, we've all played Monopoly, and so this should be helpful. All right, so let's say most of the properties have been sold, and you are trying to buy Atlantic Avenue. All right, like you, man, I like Atlantic. What color is that? Is that yellow? All right, I can't believe I remember that, but I do. And so, let's say, who like to be the banker playing Monopoly? Yeah, cheaters. And I like to be the banker too, but I didn't cheat. But anyhow, so let's say almost all the properties have bought, and you really want Atlantic Avenue. And so, you start negotiating with the person who has Atlantic Avenue. You say, look, I will buy Atlantic Avenue from you for $1,200, all right? I will pay you $1,200. Well, the other player here says, I'll pay you $1,250 for Atlantic Avenue. And then another player says, you know what? I will give you $1,100, but the next 2 times I pass go, I'll give my $200 to you. And so those are the 3 deals that he has on the table. Now, let's say somebody else comes along and comes up to the banker and says, hey, I've got all this extra Monopoly money. How about we just put it in with yours? And now there's all this more money added into the game. You think the guy who has Atlantic Avenue is going to all of a sudden still sell for $1,200 when he knows there's a whole lot more money out there? Nope. No, Atlantic Avenue just went up to $2,400 for that one guy. And because why? Double the money added in, $2,400, $2,500, and you see what I'm saying? That the money supply doubled the value of Atlantic Avenue because you increase the available funds that are there. Inflation happens because the money supply is increased excessively. This process gave rise to a Nobel Prize-winning economist named Milton Friedman's classic statement where he said this: inflation is always and everywhere a monetary phenomena. In other words, it's just about the amount of money you make available. So what you got to understand what our country's been doing for many years now. They're broke. The government, we hear about the deficit. That means they have no money. They're spending more than they make. So how are they paying for everything? They're just printing more. They're literally just printing more. And anybody wonder, how can we have, if the government's broke, how can it put $1.9 trillion, how can it give that out to all these people if they're broke? Do you know what the answer is? They just print it. They just pump $2 trillion almost, and when this is all said and done, who knows how much it'll be. They pump trillions of dollars in fabricated money, which means what are they doing? That large sum of however much money's out there, they're just adding to it, which means there's more money out there. What does that do to the cost of everything? Drives it up. All right? It drives it up. And this goes back really to the Obama administration when they created $1.2 billion and gave it to the banks. Think about that one. So they printed $1.2 trillion. They didn't give it to you. They gave it to banks and big business. So what they did is devalued your money and gave it to those who had already squandered theirs. It sounds like idiocy to me. So wait, you're going to give people money who have already failed to properly manage the money they had, and so now they're in big, they're in trouble. You're going to give them more money so that you as the government can have more say in what they do, and you expect them all of a sudden to start spending wisely. Meanwhile, you're devaluing everybody else's money by pumping a bunch of money into the economy. Understand, it's nice to get $1,400 per person. Some of you, 5 kids, that's almost 10 grand. That's nice, but understand something. 10 grand ain't what 10 grand used to be, and it certainly won't be. Certainly won't be. I mean, when houses are now going up and up and up and up, all right, that my $270,000 house is now worth over $400,000. What's 10 grand in a down payment on a house now? Not much. It's like, okay, yeah, come back when you got about 10 more. Like 10 more installments of 10. Right? And this is real. This is going on, happening right before your eyes. And this stimulus money, not necessarily tomorrow, but what it's doing is it's just adding to inflation, which is decreasing the value of your money. I want you as a people to understand what's going on in the world. I'm not saying that we're up in arms or anything like that. It's just we need to know what's going on so that you can have intelligent conversations, because you know what? Everybody's in the same boat. Everybody's in the same boat. You struggled, they're going to struggle. And you want to have intelligent conversations with people because there are different philosophies out there and so on. And so it's important to have those conversations, but I want us to be educated. And so let's talk a little bit about free markets and regulation. And in this lesson, I don't have a lot of Bible verses because what we're doing is basically everything we've done in this whole economic series. I'm taking all the principles and we've given a lot of Bible verses, and this is kind of the application. You remember, these are lengthy studies that are we do a lot of Bible to get the principles, and then we do the application afterwards. So I'm not skimping on Bible. It's disproportionate at times. And so this is really application of the principles that we've been learning about by the Bible and economics. And all modern societies have come to agree that we need government. We do need government when it comes to our economics. Why? To prevent fraud and to keep justice, to protect business transactions, to enforce contracts, to make sure people keep agreements that they make. Government should impose some health and safety standards on the sales of medicine and food and safety products. We want, government doing that. You want to have people walking around and be like, hey, I got this really good medicine. No one's ever tested it or anything, but you need to try it. It works great. No, you don't want that. Do you want to make sure that your food at the grocery store isn't going to kill you? Yes, you do, all right? So there's you want government to keep these things. Government should regulate cleanliness at public restaurants. We want the health department. And government regulations are necessary for measures, and this ensures that the gasoline, think about this. How do you know that what your gasoline pump says is accurate? You don't. But there are government regulators that do. And they go by and certify these things. And if someone starts messing with that, they're going to get in a lot of trouble. You'll notice if you look at it, every year those pumps are inspected. They actually are marked off that when they were last inspected. Well, who's doing it? It's a government official that's making sure that they are doing it. So yeah, you can mess with it, but thing is somebody's going to show up somewhere at some time unannounced and look at what you're doing to make sure that you're following the guidelines. So we want government to do that. We don't want government to be like, hey, just want to let you know we're going to come over at this time to make sure that your pumps are right, and so fix what you're doing. And no, you just want them to show up, all right? Because if you found out that somebody was ripping you off if that owner of that gas station was ripping you off, do you want them in trouble? I do. I want them in big trouble. Why? Because I have a Suburban. You know how expensive that thing is to fill? My word. It's like, I want to bring a lawn chair to fill that thing up. It's a 25-gallon tank. Same thing with the church van. It's really fun when I have to fill up the church van and the Suburban at the same time. It's like, I'm going to go on a small vacation. And what's really aggravating is the pump that I go to the Mobile right down the road, and I know it's a little bit more expensive. It gets better gas mileage, and I get a rewards thing, and it works out. And for whatever reason, you know how gas stations, they have you can squeeze it, and then they have a little clip so you can just let it run? They took those out. I don't know why. Is that some rule you're not allowed to have those things? Well, they didn't have them, then they had them, and now they're gone again. So I wish I had a gas cap and I just stick it in there. I know you're not supposed to do that, but when you have, or bring kids, get out there. Why do I have to? It's cold. That's why we had you. Pump gas. Yeah, you got to learn how to do it. Go pump gas. And, but man, when you're pumping 50 gallons of gas, and then you know when you start, the guy always comes around on the other side of you. And then they start, and that thing just slows down. Oh, it drives me nuts. It's like, dude, you see the car I'm driving? You know how long I'm going to be here? Don't. They're just, and doesn't it aggravate you when there's like 4 other open ones? And they pick yours? Well, you don't pump gas. Jen's like, I don't care because you don't pump gas. Jen pumps gas about twice a year, and then I hear about it. All right. She doesn't take out trash. She doesn't pump gas. And you're not going to mow the lawn either. I don't even mow the lawn anymore either. I let the kids do that. And I don't really do the trash. If I take out the trash at this stage of my life, they have failed. All right? The children have failed, and I'm not happy, okay? I don't take out the trash. That's their job. It's why we had them, and, so to do all these jobs around the house. And so anyhow, I don't even know why I'm going on all this gas thing. But you want to make sure that, a gallon of milk is actually a gallon of milk, all right? There's a lot of things that government does, and so most people agree that it is good for government to provide goods that nearly everyone uses. We also think of it like this. We want roads that are in good shape, and we want traffic laws, and we want to have military and police and fire departments, and we most agree on all of these things. But when you get beyond that, there is a lot of difference of opinion. Some people favor a free market approach to the rest of the economy, while others prefer more socialistic. And make no mistake about it, there is a large amount of our society that is in favor of a socialistic system as opposed to a free market system. And in a socialistic system, it's the government owns and controls not only the means of production, but all the property associated with it, so that there's no private ownership of property, even for homes, apartment buildings, or farms. This is definitely the case in communistic societies. Think about it in China, for example. In China, you don't own land. You don't own your apartment. The government owns everything. And you actually, to buy a home in China, you have to pay the government. That's who you buy it from. And it's only for a set number of years. And it's extremely expensive. And then at the end of that time, and I can't remember how long it is, it's like a 10 or maybe 20-year term, it goes back to the government. So you don't own it outright. And if you want to stay living there, you have to buy it from them again. And it's an inordinate amount of money. And so, that that's the system there. In recent years, the question is, in the United States, should the federal government own the banking system and control every aspect of it? Should the government run the nation's healthcare system? Should they run the automobile industry? Should they set wage levels for everyone in these various industries? So these are some questions. There are several factors that support the idea that a free market is always better at solving economic problems than a government ownership or control. And I don't think you have to be a rocket scientist to figure this out. The government's broke, so why would we want them to fix anything in the private sector? Makes sense to me. It's like, hey, you've got money problems. Okay, well, you know what? I've got bigger money problems. Let me help you. What part of that makes any sense? None. But that's what we're doing. The Bible's teaching on the whole of government gives support to the idea of free market is better than a socialistic or communistic market. Nothing in the Bible indicates that government is to take ownership or control of private businesses. Remember, we learned about this in private property. The Bible teaches private property. That means you have ownership of things, including your lands and your businesses. So what is the role of government? This is all coming back to the principles that we've operated on. They are to do what? They're to promote what? Good. And punish what? Evil. That is the biblically defined role of government. Government is also to enforce order in a society. It's not to own property or businesses of a nation. There's nothing in the Bible that indicates that's the role of government. The Bible gives us repeated warnings about government, that they have a tendency to what? Take. Remember, Samuel was warning the nation of Israel. They wanted a king so they could be like all the other nations. And he said, they're going to take. Warned them. You do this, they're going to take from you that which they should not, but they will. So government is to promote good and to punish evil, but we have the warning that they have a tendency to take too much. And so the Bible's teaching that private property belongs to individuals, not government. The Bible also emphasizes the value of liberty. What do we see in the Bible? Over and over and over again. Choose you this day whom you will serve. Choose what you're going to do. The Bible often gives guidelines if you choose to do something, but the choice to do it is yours. We find freedom interwoven throughout the Scripture. Could God make people believe in Him? Yes, He could. He's sovereign, all-powerful. But does He make people believe in Him? No. Who decides of whether you believe in God or not? You. You have a choice. The same facts are available to all of us. And He allows the choice up to you. This idea of choice is interwoven throughout the whole Bible. And that argues for a free market system rather than a socialistic or communistic system. Free market allows individuals to choose where they work, what they buy, how they run their businesses, how they spend their money. But the government-controlled economy makes all those decisions for people rather than allowing the people the freedom to make these decisions themselves. History demonstrates that a free market brings better results than a government-controlled market. Now, we're out of time for today. We'll finish up this lesson next week, and we'll get into something, we'll stay in economics, but we'll get into something else. But I hope that it's, just enlightening and be in prayer. And here's the thing. Whatever God's given you, be a good steward of it. All right? Be a good steward. And can I say this? Parents, it's good, do good to leave something to your kids if you can. Because the value of the dollar is ever decreasing. We don't know what the future holds. I know not everybody can, and that's okay. But if you could do something that could help your kids out one day, that'd be good. One of the best things you can do for your kids, teach them the value of $1. Teach them what it means to work. Teach them what things actually cost. And let them go without something because they don't have the money for it. Simply giving your kids everything they want isn't helping them. It's making them spoiled brats who don't understand, makes them feel entitled, and they don't understand what it means to work. And that's what you got here today, is a bunch of people who don't want to work. And the Bible teaches if you don't work, you shouldn't eat. All right? Teach your young ones at an early age. Look, there are those who, not necessarily in our church, but have criticized me for having Samantha work. That girl needs to understand the value of $1. She eats way too much. Right, Rich? She stayed over Rich's house the other day, and she had 3 breakfasts. You thought that's something hobbits did. We have a tall hobbit in our house. Actually, 5 of them. Sam and Isaiah, they're like the same person, except male and female. Isaiah eats all day long, too. He just is like, can I have a snack? He just ate dinner. I know, but I just want nachos. Like, that's not food. It's just, something to pass the time with is nachos. Anyhow, Lord, thank you for the good Sunday school. Bless the service to follow. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. All right, got a little bit of a break.